In this series, this is called the So You Think You Can Deadlift series. So today we're going to take
Ryan Minney.
We're going to take Ryan and we're going to teach him how to deadlift from scratch. The deadlift is a very important tool no matter what you're trying to train for, whether it be powerlifting, which is an actual event, strongman, general fitness, any of those things. The major reason being is every muscle group in your body is utilized when deadlifting, okay? Hand strength, arms, especially forearm strength and size, upper back, traps, rhomboids, lats, any muscles connected to the scapula, all of your spinal erectors, glutes and hamstrings. So as you can see, we've pretty much talked about everything, even including quadriceps. So a lot of your bigger, stronger guys have deadlifts in some form and variation in their programs. Today we're going to go over the conventional deadlift. There is also the sumo deadlift, which we'll get into as well. But I primarily want to use a conventional deadlift because I think it's got a little bit more applicability to general populations, and also it's still one of the most popular ways to deadlift even in powerlifting. With that being said, what we're going to do is kind of go over some initial cues. Some of the most important things on the deadlift are to, one, always maintain an upright head position. This allows the back to stay straight. Two, you have to keep your back arched. We talked about this in the Think You Can Squat series. It's just as important, if not more important, in the deadlift, because once the back starts to round, the mechanics of the lift change drastically, and it becomes more of a knee extension exercise, while the lower back is in a very precarious position as far as getting hurt and creating much less force. So we talk about the spine arch being, how much is your butt sticking out at the bottom, and how much can you hold as you're coming up. As soon as this happens, you're not going to have a whole lot of power. The other thing as well is the stabilizer and muscles that hold your position. The static muscle strength is very important because in general, most people are not built to be world-class deadlifters. Myself included. For me to get to over an 800-pound deadlift took a lot of work above and beyond even what most world-class athletes have to do, just because of the fact that I'm over 6 foot tall and I have arms built to bench press. So for me to go down and grab the bar is like a 3.5, 4 foot deadlift. With that being said, I learned a lot from the deadlift as far as technical things and muscular weaknesses that helped me get that world record squat of 1197. So the deadlift helped the squat, but it basically just builds the entire body as a whole. So if you have no deadlift, chances are you don't have any back or leg strength or size. With that being said, we're going to go over his technique. We're going to straighten it out, and then we're going to watch it break just as we did the squats. And then we're going to take that technical break as a learning tool, and that learning tool is going to be to decide what kind of accessory exercises we do and attack to make sure that he not only makes positive progress in the lift, but also protects himself from injury so he's allowed to be able to lift longer, safer, and smarter. So without that being said, we'll coach him through this 135-pound deadlift and get everything perfect, and then just take him up to the top, and we'll stop and talk about some form breaks that we see along the way. And then once we do that, we'll take him up to a max until I feel it's unsafe or he can't pick it up, and then we should have enough data in order to attack it with all the proper accessory exercises. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set his feet properly. Now, foot position on where your feet go on the bar is dictated by upper body size. Okay, if you're a big guy and you got big core muscles and big pecs and big arms and shoulders, it's going to be very hard to set up and not be perfectly put under the bar where the bar is right up against the actual shin here. Okay, most people say, you want to choke up to the bar as far as you possibly can. Well, if you're a really big guy, you're going to have to back that off. Myself, for example, I have to pull with the bar lined up right at my toenails, just because I have to be able to create room to sit into the bar. And a lot of people don't understand that. So if he comes in too close to the bar, he's going to pull against himself. So there's an optimal amount of how close are you to the bar and how far are you away to the bar, and that's dependent upon how you're built. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch him pick it up natural. I'm not going to coach him, and I'll see if I can move his feet in a better position. So, since he's not a crazy large guy, he's able to get very close to the bar and still maintain a straight up and down bar path. But what I will say is that he almost needs to pull the bar into him closer. So from the side, what we'll try to do is we need to try, as soon as the bar reaches the ground, we need to try to pull the bar into our legs as close as we possibly can to create the most amount of leverage. There's two ways to do this. One, you can roll the bar closer to your body, or two, you can pinch your shoulder blades back farther, allowing the bar to come closer into your body. So what we'll do is we'll tweak that. So what I want him to do when he starts is pull his shoulder blades back and together, and then pull the bar, and the bar should drift right up his legs, especially when it gets to the knee. If there's space between the bar and his leg, the farther away you're getting from your midsection, the less leverage that you have. So this next one we're going to do, we're going to watch him pull it and try to get it up against his legs right off the ground. Much better. So if you saw from the first one to the second one, the bar came right into his body and he's able to create more leverage on it. So what we're going to do now is we'll take the bar to 225 and we'll pull a rep there, and we'll see if we see anything else that we might need to correct. So we've loaded the bar to 225. We're about 50% of his max, roughly, and around that range. You have to go up to close to maximum weights to see technical form changes and breaks. Going up to maxes and seeing bad form is usually an indicator of, this is time to stop or whatever, and we will stop once it gets to the point of being slightly dangerous, but you can't see everything that's going on in the body until it goes to maximum, because I can sit here and tell him how to pull perfectly with 135, and we can get his form dialed in. But he's not going to remember that at 405, 455. His body is going to go back to his natural posture, and that's where in the later segments we're going to talk about accessory work. If you want to be a good deadlifter, you have to be great at all accessory work, especially in your weak points. So this is why we go up so heavy close to his maximum, so we can see and make sure that the progress or the plan that we're going to make for this guy is going to work. So we're going to pick up 225.
No, that's good, yep.
Good. Now, what we're seeing here with 225 is we're seeing pretty good form. Obviously, it really has not a lot wrong with it. And obviously, as we go up, we're going to see more things change. The big issue is, though, is if you ever look at any world-class deadlifters that I know, and me especially, when I'm pulling 135, 225, 315, 400, 500, every one of those looks the same speed. They're fast, they're violent, and they're perfect. And those three things have to be utilized when you're warming up, because if you're telling your brain to go slow and easy, when you're pulling warm-ups, it's going to go slow and easy on max, and that usually indicates you're not going to deadlift very much. So when you're warming up on these types of lifts, you want to make sure you're trying to pull at max velocity so that brain understands that you need to go as fast as possible, because a lot of the deadlifts, if you watch Benedict Magnuson or a lot of the other big pullers, Andy Bolton, when they grab that bar, it's NASA shuttle time. That thing is coming off the ground at 100 miles an hour, and it may stall and it may get slow, but the intent off the floor is maximum explosiveness. So you have to understand that deadlift has a lot to do with being fast. So the first thing I would do if I saw him in my gym would be, okay, that's 225, that's 50% of your max. That should move a lot faster. So obviously we're going up to max and we're not working on speed today, but those are the types of things I would see another 50 to 100 pounds in his lift would be, he's not an explosive guy. So we have to work on explosiveness in order for the lifts to become more heightened at a higher weight. So for him, if his max is 405, 455, then if he needs to get it to 500, I'm telling him right now that the accessory work's going to help, but bar speed is going to be a major component in it, making sure that that lift increases. So now we're going to go up to 315.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. Now what we saw with that 315 was the very start of his tailbone starting to turn under his body and his pelvis starting to shift forward. Now that could be two different reasons. One, we could have a mobility issue, which means when we get down to the bar, we're not fully comfortable. Could be a tight hamstring or an inactive glute. The other thing it could be is that his spinal erectors on the lower part of his body close to his butt are not staying pinched and super tight. Because remember, sometimes the most comfortable position off of the floor is not the position you want to be in the middle. Because if you're just leaning over to grab the bar any way you can, and your spine's not straight up and down or has a nice curve to it, as far as your butt sticking out, then when you go to pull, it's gonna fold like an accordion. And that's where you're gonna get stuck in the middle. So a lot of guys will pull off the floor, and then as soon as this breaks, they wonder why they stick here every time, because they should be here to pull through. But if you don't have that position off the floor, you can't regain it once the bar comes off the ground. So the next one we'll go to is 365. Come on now. Pull back, pull back, pull back, hips, hips, hips. Good. So what we saw on that lift was when we first initiated break off the ground, the lower back was already at a little bit of a cup. It was already at a convex bend, which is causing the bar, as soon as it's picked up, to be sucked in. Now the back's in a bad position. Whereas if we can hold this position, now when we get here, all I gotta do is push my hips into the bar. But if my back's rounded, pushing my hips into the bar is very hard, if not impossible. So by seeing that, just that, we'll probably go up one more, but just by seeing that, I can tell you that we need to work a lot of lower back, and we need some mobility work in the bottom end to be comfortable in the proper position. So he is a strongman, so he trains things much higher than this, but as we can see, the transferability of that's fairly low. So we're talking off camera slightly about how to, if you develop the floor strength for your lower back, the upper strength comes. So I rarely do pin pulls. I do all my stuff off the floor, but when I go to pins, I can almost always break a record. And the reason for that is it's much harder to hold my back position off the floor because I'm leaned over than it is off of a pin. So we have a lot of guys in powerlifting that are doing a lot of insane amounts of pin pulls, but we don't see their deadlift rise in a meet. And a lot of that's because the pin pull only has minimal transfer unless it's an exact sticking point with the exact same mechanical pressures. By meaning, you know, if you're in a pin and you're fully arched, you know, and you're in this position, you know, you might be able to pull 100, 150 pounds more than you can deadlift off the floor. The transferability is not very high. So what we do when we do pin pulls is we try to put ourselves in a position that we may be at a super heavy deadlift, which is a slight back round, and then pull from there. And it's amazing to see how close it is to your deadlift off the floor. So you don't want to set yourself up in positions where you're doing a lot of pin pulls in optimal positions, but you can't achieve those optimal positions in different angles. So what we saw on that last one was now we're really starting to see the back bend. Instead of that butt being stuck out and having a nice arch in the back arch is starting to disappear. Usually the case of that is the lower back doesn't have enough static strength to maintain position, and that the hamstring is not being activated correctly. I think one big misconception of the deadlift is a byproduct of deadlifting correctly is the bar coming off the ground. So a deadlift is not, in this mindset, is not the bar. When you go to grab it, I do not think about picking the weight up off the ground. I think about pushing my hips into the bar. So if I think about picking the bar up off the ground, this is what's going to happen. My back's going to round and my legs are going to try to do all the work, and then I'm stuck in this position somewhere in here. Okay? But if I'm thinking about pulling the bar backwards and pushing my hips into the bar, the first motion is that my hips are coming into the bar and I'm pulling it backwards. That backwards pull allows me to use my hamstrings and my glutes at an optimal position, and it also keeps the lower back to a minimum. So a lot of people, when they're deadlifting, it's almost like a false image. When you're grabbing the bar, the byproduct of the exercise is the bar coming off the ground, but it shouldn't be what you're thinking of. What you should be thinking of is the hips coming into the bar. The hips coming into the bar allow the bar to be pulled backwards and maintain a straighter back. So if you talk to a lot of world-class deadlifters, they're going to tell you the same thing. They're trying to pull the bar back while holding on to it, which is allowing them to thrust through the bar versus just trying to lift it up off the ground. So this is going to be probably close to his max, if not miss, and we should see all the things that we've been talking about so far. Come on, dude, let's go. Come on, big drive. Set it up now, let's go. Pull back, pull back. Okay. Come on now. Hips, 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 hips. All right, good. So we failed there, and if you look very, very close on the video, you'll probably see that the first motion when he deadlifts is the back rounds, and then he's trying to find a way to leg extend the exercise. So the real key to being a great deadlifter is learning how to get your hips through and just maintain a solid back that doesn't absorb any energy. So you want to train your back to be as strong as a piece of wrought iron, you know, like 2 big 3-inch pieces of wrought iron, that when you push on something, you don't have any absorption of energy. It just locks into a position and then is able to rotate the weight through the hips. But a lot of people's spine are not as strong as their legs. So what ends up happening is the back starts to absorb a lot of the pressure because, you know, the weight has to transfer from the hand into the back down to your feet. And when that happens, if your back is not a solid piece of iron, you'll have a lot of absorption of power in your upper back, which is not very uncommon. The upper back's muscles are smaller. The mechanical leverage of them are much less in the beginning. And your legs do everything. They move you around all day. They get you up and down out of a chair. They get you out of bed. So in general, most people's legs are way more powerful than their backs. With that being said, if you start learning these big compound movements without creating a big, strong back, then you're going to have a deficit, and that's where your deadlifts become, lack of a better term, a pain in the ass when you get up to a fairly level amount of strength, which could be anywhere between, you know, at his body weight, you know, a 500-pound deadlift is a really good deadlift. And that's being said, he's been able to get up to 400 pounds, but now because his lower middle back is so much weaker than his legs, it's caused a limiting factor.